Let's get some more analysis from here in the US. Joining me from Los Angeles, Peter Matthews, who's a political scientist at Cypress College. Peter, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure you've been glued to coverage today. What did you make it? And I guess has there been a bit of a different reception over in the west of the nation?
I must say it's good to be with you, and it's a historical day with a historical election. In fact, the first president in over 100 years or so to be elected after sitting out of office for 4 years. He came back again, re-elected this time. And so it's been quite remarkable, and people are very interested in what's going on, obviously, and we're following closely. Right away, he came up with some executive orders today that accomplished quite a bit of things that he's trying to do here. He came up with pardoning the January 6th people who actually, 1,500 people who were convicted that day. He pardoned them. National emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border, which he brought into executive order. Paris Agreement, withdrawal from Paris Climate Agreement. Ending birthright citizenship, 14th Amendment, withdrawal from WHO, steep tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Extending deadline for TikTok ban. That's one people love. He's allowed people to stay on TikTok a little longer, about 90 days longer. And the last one I will have listed here among many is deporting of undocumented workers, 50% of whom work in agriculture. So he's put that executive order through as well. That's begun as well. So there are a lot of things happening, and people are watching very closely to see how this will result.
That's the key question, is it? We know he's been going to do a lot of these things. The effect of them will be fascinating when it gets to the tariffs, when it gets to illegal immigrants, because some of them might have been here for a long time, and people might not realise the jobs that they're doing. I do want to ask you though, because we've seen around the Capitol today, even on a frigid day, a lot of Donald Trump supporters. They were lining up for hours and hours and not minding the rain. What we didn't see much on a warmer day a couple of days ago with protesters. What does this say, do you think, that protest numbers are so much smaller this time around for Donald Trump's presidency?
They were quite a bit smaller. Something like 50,000 people showed up at the protest, whereas, 8 years ago, it was 500,000 people. So I think it has to do with many of those folks who opposed him in the election. They're pretty worn out from all of the campaigning and what happened, and they're probably a little dejected, but they decided to regroup, and many of them said who did not show up said they were just gathering their strength for the struggle that goes on in their point of view to try to oppose some of the policy which they think might be detrimental. They're just trying to gathering strength rather than being out there protesting again as they did 8 years ago. They're reassessing what they need to do to have their point of view not nullified completely.
Yeah, I found it interesting. The organisers almost seem to want people to snap out of despondence in terms of the left of America. So we'll see perhaps if a frantic pace of the Trump government administration results in that. It'll be fascinating as well what he does about what's happening in your neck of the woods. Obviously, these horrific fires in Los Angeles. On the one hand, people might think, well, Donald Trump, how will he handle that? It's a good opportunity, isn't it? Because today he didn't give a typical speech around unity so much. It was, much more an ode to his supporters. But when he goes to LA, it's an important opportunity, isn't it, to show he can be a president to all, that they won't want to necessarily hear a lot about fault at that point. You always want to know why it happened to avoid it, but also, rebuilding a lot of those areas.
It's really important because we've been devastated here. I live in LA County, and even today the air quality was really horrendous because it's not just the particulate matter, but also the chemicals in those fires coming from the burning of houses and various things in the house, like plastics and things. So it can have long-term effects. So when President Trump comes here on Friday, hopefully, he will look carefully and see what needs to be done, how much federal aid that needs to be put forth, and it should be a bipartisan issue and nonpartisan issue where he's the president of all Americans, especially Californians here, who need him and need help, as we helped people in Florida when the tornadoes came. People in California paid taxes for that and helped them fund their resurgency coming back up. So if he comes in and does the right thing as president, it'll be a really good time to try to heal the nation to somewhat so that people will see who opposed him that he's really for all of us. I think that'll be a very important opportunity for him to do, and I think hopefully he'll do that.
Yeah, it seems likely to be a pretty early visit for Donald Trump.